Home is where memories live, but what happens when it's sold without warning? This is a tale of family, betrayal, and fighting to hold on to the past when it's ripped away. My name is Michael, 42, a construction project manager at a mid-sized firm in suburban Lexington, Kentucky. My wife, Emily, and I have two kids, Sophie, 13, and Liam, 10. We're not rolling in money. Every paycheck goes to groceries, soccer dues, or the mortgage on our modest split-level house. My days are a juggling act, coordinating subcontractors, cheering at Sophie's debate tournaments, and catching Liam sneaking extra Xbox time. But every Sunday, I make the 15-minute drive to my dad, Robert's house in Nicholasville, the home where I grew up. That place isn't just bricks and mortar, it's where Mom's spirit lingers, even 7 years after breast cancer took her. That house holds everything. Mom's rose garden out back, her handwritten recipe cards in the kitchen drawer, the porch swing where she'd read me bedtime stories. I'd mow the lawn, patch up the fence, or just sit with Dad over coffee, talking about the Wildcats' latest game or how Sophie's got Mom's sharp tongue. Those visits were my anchor, a way to feel Mom's presence, like she was still watching over us. Dad's 68, retired from accounting. And since Mom passed, he's been quieter, more withdrawn. I chalked it up to grief. He's always been practical, not one for big feelings. So when he mentioned meeting Karen at the community center 6 months ago, I was relieved. She's got spunk, he said. And I pictured some sweet retiree who liked quilting. I didn't dig deeper. I was just glad he wasn't alone. Last July, everything shattered. It was a sticky summer morning, and I was driving to Dad's with Liam in the back seat, grumbling about leaving his video games. Sophie stayed home with Emily, working on a school project. I planned to trim the hedges and maybe fire up the grill with Dad. As I turned onto his street, I saw it, a glaring red sold sign stabbed into the front yard, right by Mom's roses. My heart stopped. I pulled into the driveway, palms sweaty, and there was Dad, sitting on the porch, sipping coffee like it was any other day. "Dad, what's this?" I asked, pointing at the sign, my voice sharper than I meant. Liam looked up, confused, tugging my arm. Dad barely glanced at me. "Oh, that? House sold last week, moving to Florida with Karen." His tone was so casual, like he'd just changed his phone plan. I stood frozen. "You sold Mom's house?" "Without telling me. Or Rachel." "My sister, Rachel, lives in Chicago, but that house means as much to her as it does to me." He shrugged. "Didn't think it was a big deal. You've got your own place." "Not a big deal. That house was my childhood. Mom teaching me to ride a bike in the driveway. Rachel and me carving our initials into the garage beam. The way the kitchen smelled when Mom baked." I pressed him, voice shaking. "Why, Dad? Why now?" He finally looked at me, annoyed. "Karen's got a business in Florida, a boutique. I'm helping her out. It's my house, Michael." His house, like it didn't belong to all of us. I sent Liam to kick his soccer ball in the yard so we could talk, but Dad just waved me off. "You're overreacting. It's just a house." I grabbed the hedge clippers, hacking at the bushes like they'd personally betrayed me. Each snip was a release, but it didn't fill the hole in my chest. That house wasn't just a house. It was Mom. It was us. And Dad had sold it for a woman he'd known for 6 months. I didn't know it then, but that sign was just the start of losing more than I could have imagined. I stood in Dad's driveway, the hedge clippers heavy in my hands, staring at that sold sign like it was taunting me. The Kentucky humidity clung to my skin, but I felt a chill, like the ground had shifted beneath me. Liam was kicking his soccer ball across the yard, oblivious to the storm in my head. Dad sat there, sipping his coffee, acting like he hadn't just torn my world apart. "You're moving to Florida?" I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "With Karen? And you didn't think to tell us?" He sighed, like I was some kid whining about bedtime. "Michael, you've got your own life. This house is too big for me now. Karen's got plans, a boutique in Tampa. I'm helping her out." His words were so matter-of-fact, like he was explaining a grocery list, not selling Mom's house. "Helping her out? With what?" I pressed him, my hands shaking. "What's this boutique? How much did you sell for?" He got cagey, muttering about it being his decision and a good opportunity. Finally, he admitted he'd sold the house for a chunk, enough to bankroll Karen's dream, and then some. A woman he'd known for half a year. I felt like I'd been kicked in the gut. What about Rachel? What about me? This is Mom's house, Dad. He just shrugged. You're overreacting. It's just property. Property, like Mom's rose garden, her recipe cards, the porch swing where she'd sing to us were just things you could price and sell. I drove home in a daze, Liam quiet in the back seat, sensing something was wrong. That night, I called Rachel. She's always been the steady one, 3 years older, with a knack for keeping her cool. But when I told her about the sign, the sale, Karen's boutique, she went silent. He did what? She finally said, her voice low and tight. I could hear her pacing her Chicago apartment. He didn't even call me. Michael, that's her home. I told her everything, Dad's nonchalance, Karen's business opportunity. Rachel's voice cracked. 6 months. He's throwing away Mom's memory for someone he met 6 months ago. She said she'd fly out that weekend. We're talking to him, together. Work was a nightmare that week. I was supposed to be managing a new office build in downtown Lexington, but my head wasn't in it. I kept picturing that sold sign, Mom's roses wilting under it. My foreman, Tom, caught me staring at blueprints like they were written in another language. You good, Mike? He asked. I wasn't, but I nodded, barking orders to cover how lost I felt. After work, I'd drive by Dad's house, just sitting in my truck, watching the place like it might vanish if I blinked. One evening, I went inside and walked through every room. The kitchen still had Mom's old spice rack. The living room had that worn spot on the couch where she'd sit. I sat on the porch swing, creaking under my weight, and it was like Mom was there, telling me to breathe. I didn't realize I was crying until my shirt was damp. Rachel arrived on Saturday, and we went to Dad's together. He was packing boxes in the living room, Karen flitting around, humming some tune. She was all smiles, mid-50s, with loud jewelry and a louder laugh, going on about how amazing Florida would be. I wanted to like her, for Dad's sake, but every word she said grated. Rachel didn't hold back. Dad, how could you do this without telling us? That's Mom's house, our house. He got defensive, his face red. I'm not dead yet. Rachel, I deserve to move on. Your mother's gone. It was like a knife. Karen tried to play peacemaker, saying, let's all calm down. But Rachel snapped, you don't get to talk about our family. I pulled her outside before it got worse. That night, at my place, Emily poured us coffee while we vented. He didn't even ask you to help pack, she said, stunned. Nope, he'd hired movers, said he didn't need us getting in the way. Rachel found out from a realtor friend that the house sold for nearly $400,000, more than enough for Karen's boutique. Dad hadn't offered us a cent. Not that we wanted it. We just wanted a piece of Mom, a chance to hold on to what was left. But Dad was already halfway to Florida in his mind, and I wasn't sure we'd ever get him back. After Rachel stormed out of Dad's house, I drove us back to my place in silence. The Kentucky twilight was heavy, like the weight in my chest. Rachel stared out the window, her jaw tight, and I knew she was holding back tears. Emily was waiting with dinner, meat loaf, the kid's favorite. But even Sophie's chatter about her debate team couldn't lighten the mood. Liam kept sneaking glances at me, like he was waiting for me to fix everything. I wished I could. That night, after the kids were in bed, Rachel and I sat with Emily at the kitchen table, picking at cold coffee. What do we do now? Rachel asked, her voice raw. I didn't have an answer. All I could think about was Mom's rose garden, soon to belong to someone else. Work was my only escape, but even that was slipping. The office build in Lexington was behind schedule, and I was dropping the ball. Tom, my foreman, pulled me aside one morning. Mike, you're not yourself. Talk to me. I mumbled something about family stuff, but how do you explain your dad selling your childhood for a stranger's dream? I spent lunch breaks sitting in my truck, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Mom laughing at a barbecue, Mom and Rachel baking cookies, Mom hugging me at my high school graduation. Each picture was a stab, reminding me what was slipping away. I went back to Dad's house midweek, alone. The sold sign still stood like a middle finger in the yard. Inside, the place was half-packed, boxes stacked in the living room, Mom's things mixed with Dad's old golf magazines. Karen had left a note on the fridge about picking up paint swatches for their new place in Tampa. It made my skin crawl, her acting like she belonged there. I wandered to the backyard, where Mom's roses were starting to droop in the July heat. I could almost hear her voice. telling me to water them properly. I grabbed the hose, soaking the soil, and for a moment, it felt like I was keeping her alive. But then I remembered. Someone else would be tending this garden soon, or worse, ripping it out. Rachel called that night, still furious. I talked to a lawyer friend, she said. We could fight this. Maybe it's not right. But we both knew it was pointless. Dad owned the house outright. It was his to sell. Still, she dug into Karen's boutique online. Turns out, it was some half-baked idea for a beachwear shop, barely registered, with no business plan we could find. He's throwing away Mom's legacy for this? Rachel said, her voice breaking. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at Dad, make him see what he'd done, but another part just felt tired, like fighting wouldn't bring the house back. Emily noticed how quiet I'd gotten. One evening, while we were washing dishes, she put her hand on mine. You're carrying this alone. Michael, talk to me. I spilled it all, how the house wasn't just a place, but Mom's laughter, her warmth, our history, how Dad's dismissal made me feel like I didn't matter. Emily listened, then said, You can't change him, but you can decide what you keep. Her words stuck with me. I started going to the house daily, salvaging what I could. I took Mom's recipe cards, her favorite scarf, a photo album from the attic. Each item felt like a piece of her I was saving from being erased. But Dad? He was already gone. Mentally at least, he called once, leaving a voicemail about his flight to Florida. No apology, just logistics. Movers are coming next week. Handle what's left. I didn't call back. Rachel said she'd try talking to him when he settled in Tampa, but I could tell her heart wasn't in it. At work, I threw myself into the project, barking orders to keep my mind off things. But every night, I'd drive by the house. Watching it slip further away, the roses were wilting, and so was something in me. I didn't know how to let go, not of the house, not of Mom, not of the Dad I thought I knew. The days after that voicemail from Dad felt like moving through fog. I'd wake up, get the kids to school, head to the construction site in Lexington, and go through the motions, checking blueprints, yelling at suppliers for late deliveries. But my mind was stuck on that sold sign. It was like a splinter I couldn't pull out. Emily kept trying to get me to talk, but I'd just grunt, I'm fine, and change the subject. Truth is, I wasn't fine. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mom's rose garden, the porch swing, the kitchen where she danced to old country tunes while cooking, and now it was all going to some stranger because Dad decided Karen's boutique was worth more than our family's past. Sophie and Liam started noticing my mood. Sophie's 13, sharp as a tack, and she'd give me these looks, like she was trying to solve me. One night at dinner, she pushed her peas around and asked, Dad, are you mad at Grandpa? I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. Liam, always quick to follow her lead, piped up, Yeah, is he not coming back? Emily shot me a glance, the kind that says, Don't dodge this dash. I put my fork down, trying to find words that wouldn't scare them. Grandpa's moving to Florida, I said, keeping it simple. He sold his house, and I'm just sad about it. Sophie frowned, but that's where Grandma's garden is. My throat tightened. She remembered. I nodded, unable to say more, and Emily changed the subject to Liam's soccer game. Work wasn't much better. The office build was a mess, supply chain issues, a cranky client, and me snapping at my crew over nothing. Tom, my foreman, pulled me aside again. Mike, you're scaring the guys. What's going on? I wanted to tell him, but how do you explain that your dad sold your childhood for a woman he barely knows? I just shook my head and promised to get it together. But every evening, I'd end up at Dad's house, walking through it like a ghost. The movers hadn't come yet, so I kept salvaging what I could. Mom's old cookbooks, a quilt she'd made, a photo of her and Dad at their wedding, both of them so young and happy. It hurt to look at it, knowing how far he'd drifted from that guy. Rachel called from Chicago, still spitting mad. I found Karen's boutique online, she said. It's a joke. Michael, a barely registered LLC with no website, just a splashy Instagram full of beach photos. She'd even called Dad, hoping to talk sense into him, but he brushed her off, saying she was meddling. He's acting like we're the problem, she said, her voice breaking. I could hear her pacing, the same way she did when we were kids and she was upset. I'm done trying, she added. He's made his choice. I wanted to argue, to say we could still reach him, but deep down, I wasn't sure I believed it. Emily was my lifeline. One night, after the kids were asleep, she sat me down on the couch. Michael, you're drowning in this. You can't keep going to that house every day. She was right. I was torturing myself, walking through those rooms, clinging to memories, but letting go felt like betraying Mom. What am I supposed to do? I asked, my voice rough. She took my hand. Start with the kids. They're hurting too. Maybe you can make something new, something like your mom would have loved. Her words hit me hard. Mom always said family was about building, not just holding on to what was. I started small. That weekend, I took Sophie and Liam to the backyard. What if we planted something? I asked. Sophie's eyes lit up. Mom's garden was her favorite place to hear stories about Grandma. Liam, less enthusiastic, shrugged but grabbed a shovel. We dug up a patch of our tiny yard, talking about Mom's roses, her lavender, how she'd hum while she worked. It wasn't the same, but it was something. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope, like maybe I could keep Mom's memory alive without that Parnatex, that house. But Dad was still out there in Florida, and I wasn't ready to face him. Not yet. That backyard gardening day with Sophie and Liam stuck with me, like a small light in the haze of everything else. We didn't have Mom's green thumb, and our little patch of dirt in our Lexington backyard was nothing compared to her sprawling rose garden. But seeing Sophie carefully pat down soil around a lavender plant and Liam laughing when he got mud on his sneakers, it felt like a start. Emily watched from the porch, smiling in a way that said she knew this was bigger than just planting flowers. But even that moment couldn't erase the ache of Dad's betrayal. Every time I thought about that sold sign, it was like a fresh cut. Work was still a grind. The office build was finally moving forward, but I was running on fumes, double-checking plans and dodging client complaints while my mind kept drifting to Dad. I'd catch myself staring at my phone, half expecting him to call and say it was all a mistake, that he'd changed his mind about Florida, but he didn't. Instead, I got a text from him. Short and cold. Movers come Tuesday. Clean out what you want. No, how are you? No hint of regret. I showed it to Emily, and she just shook her head. He's shutting you out. Michael, you can't keep waiting for him to care. Her words stung because they were true. I'd been holding on to the idea that Dad would snap out of whatever spell Karen had him under, but he was gone. Maybe not just to Florida, but from us. I went to the house that weekend, alone. The place was starting to feel like a stranger's, boxes everywhere, furniture tagged for movers, Mom's things buried under Dad's clutter. I found her old gardening gloves in a shed, worn and stained. And I sat on the porch swing holding them, remembering how she'd waved them at me when I was a kid, pretending they were monster claws. I tucked them into a box with the other stuff I'd saved. Her cookbooks, a photo of her and Rachel at a county fair, a chipped teacup she loved. Each item was a piece of her, but it wasn't enough to fill the void. The roses outside were wilting in the late July heat, and I couldn't bring myself to water them. They weren't mine anymore. Rachel called that night, her voice heavy. She'd been digging more into Karen's boutique, and it was shadier than we thought. It's barely a business, she said. Some Instagram posts and a GoFundMe page that's raised nothing. Dad's pouring everything into this. She'd tried calling him again, but he dismissed her, saying she was jealous of his new life. Jealous. The word made my blood boil. I'm flying down to Florida next month, Rachel said. I need to see him face to face. I told her I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. The thought of seeing Dad with Karen, acting like he hadn't erased our past, made me sick. Back home, Sophie and Liam kept asking about Grandpa. Sophie, especially, was relentless, her questions cutting deeper each time. Why doesn't Grandpa want the house anymore? Doesn't he miss Grandma? I didn't know how to explain that Dad seemed to be running from Mom's memory, not preserving it. Emily suggested we keep the kids busy with the garden, and it helped. We spent evenings planting more flowers, roses for Sophie, daisies for Liam. And I started telling them stories about Mom, like how she'd sneak extra sugar into her lemonade or sing off-key to make us laugh. They soaked it up, and for the first time, I felt like I was giving them something of her, not just mourning what was lost. But the anger at Dad kept simmering. I'd see his old toolbox in my garage, or a photo of him and Mom on my desk, and it'd hit me all over again. How could he do this? Emily kept pushing me to confront him, not just for me, but for the kids. They need to know you fought for what matters, she said. She was right. But every time I thought about calling him, my hand shook. I wasn't ready to hear him dismiss me again, to hear him call Mom's house just property. So I kept going to work, tending our little garden and holding on to Mom's things, trying to build something new while the old wounds festered. The garden in our backyard was starting to take shape, a small patch of roses and daisies that Sophie and Liam tended with a seriousness that made my heart ache. It wasn't Mom's sprawling garden in Nicholasville, but it was ours. And every time I saw Liam carefully watering the plants or Sophie checking for new buds, I felt a flicker of Mom's spirit. Emily would join us, bringing iced tea and stories about Mom's quirks, like how she'd name each rosebush after a book character. The kids loved it. And for a moment, it dulled the pain of losing the house. But then I'd remember Dad's text, "Movers come Tuesday," and the anger would flare up again, hot and sharp, like a fresh wound. Work was my only distraction, but even that was shaky. The Lexington office build was finally on track, but I was a mess, forgetting meetings, snapping at my crew over minor delays. Tom, my foreman, stopped asking if I was okay and just gave me space, which was worse somehow. I'd sit in my truck during breaks, staring at a photo of Mom and Dad from my wedding, both of them beaming. That Dad, the one who'd sneak extra dessert to Sophie and Liam, who'd tell stories about building that house with. Mom was gone, replaced by someone who'd sell our past for a woman he barely knew. I kept replaying his words. It's just property. It wasn't. It was Mom's laughter, her warmth, our history. I went to the house one last time before the movers came. The place was a shell now, furniture gone, walls bare. Mom's things either packed by me or tossed by Karen. I found a box of her old letters in the attic, notes she'd written to Dad when they were dating, full of love and dreams for their future. Reading them felt like intruding, but I couldn't stop. She wrote about wanting a home for us, a place where we'd always feel safe. I sat on the floor, surrounded by dust and memories, and cried. Not the quiet tears from before, but the kind that shake your whole body. I took the letters, her gardening gloves, and a small painting she'd done of the backyard. The rest, I left for the movers. It felt like giving up, but what else could I do? Rachel called that night, her voice tight with frustration. I booked my flight to Florida, she said. I'm going next week. I can't let this go. Michael. She'd found more about Karen's boutique, or lack thereof. It was just a vague plan. No real funding except Dad's money, and Karen's social media was full of flashy posts about living her best life. Rachel was convinced Dad was being played, but I wasn't so sure. Maybe he just wanted to escape, to leave behind the grief of losing Mom. Are you coming? Rachel asked. I hesitated. The thought of seeing Dad with Karen in some sunny Tampa condo made my stomach turn. I can't, I said, not yet. She didn't push, but I could hear her disappointment. Emily kept me grounded. One evening, while we were tucking the kids in, she pulled me aside. You're stuck, Michael. You're holding on to that house like it's all you have of your mom. She wasn't wrong. Every time I thought about letting go, guilt hit me, like I was betraying Mom's memory. But Emily had a way of cutting through my fog. You've got Sophie and Liam, she said. You've got her stories, her recipes. That's what keeps her alive. She suggested we make Mom's favorite peach cobbler with the kids, using her old recipe card. It was a small thing, but when we did it, the kitchen filled with the smell of peaches and cinnamon, and Sophie's laugh sounded so much like Mom's it hurt. Still, Dad's absence gnawed at me. I hadn't called him since his text, and he hadn't reached out either. Rachel said he was posting photos from Florida, him and Karen at the beach, smiling like nothing was wrong. It felt like a slap. I wanted to confront him, to make him see what he'd taken from us. But every time I picked up the phone, my hand shook. So I focused on the garden, on the kids, on the little pieces of Mom I could still hold on to. But I knew this wasn't over, not until I faced him. The garden in our backyard was becoming a little haven, with Sophie's roses starting to bloom and Liam's daisies poking through the soil. Every evening, we'd spend time out there, weeding or watering, and it was like Mom was with us, her laughter echoing in Sophie's giggle when Liam flicked dirt at her. Emily would sit on the porch, watching us with a soft smile, and for those moments, I could almost forget the whole Dad had left. But then I'd see his old wrench in my toolbox or catch a glimpse of that wedding photo on my desk, and the anger would rush back. He was in Florida now, living his new life with Karen, while I was here, piecing together what was left of our family's past. Work was finally stabilizing. The Lexington office build was nearly done, and I'd managed to pull myself together enough to keep the client happy, but my crew still tiptoed around me, like they could sense I was one bad day from snapping. Tom, my foreman, didn't ask questions anymore, just gave me a nod when I showed up on time. I threw myself into the job, checking measurements twice, barking orders, anything to keep my mind off Dad. But during breaks, I'd sit in my truck, scrolling through the photos I'd saved from the house. Mom's garden, her smile, us as kids, each one was a reminder of what I'd lost and what Dad had thrown away. Rachel's trip to Florida was looming, and she kept texting me updates. "I'm seeing him tomorrow," she wrote one night. "Wish me luck." I wanted to go with her, to stand in front of Dad and demand answers. But something held me back. Fear, maybe, that he'd look at me with that same cold dismissal, like I was just a kid whining about nothing. I called her instead, asking what she planned to say. "I just want him to hear me," she said, her voice tired. "I want him to know what he took from us." She'd found more about Karen's boutique, a flimsy website with stock photos, no real inventory. He sunk everything into this. "Michael, what if it fails?" I didn't have an answer. Part of me hoped it would, just so he'd feel the weight of his choice. At home, Emily kept pushing me to find closure. "You can't keep carrying this anger," she said one night, after we'd tucked the kids in. We were on the couch, her head on my shoulder, and I felt the weight of her words. "It's not just about the house," I admitted. "It's him. He's acting like Mom never mattered." Emily squeezed my hand. "She mattered. You're keeping her alive for Sophie and Liam." She was right. The kids were thriving in our little garden, asking for stories about Mom every night. Sophie wanted to make Mom's peach cobbler again, and Liam started sketching a plan for a tiny bench, like the porch swing at the old house. It was small, but it was ours. Still, I couldn't shake the need to confront Dad. I tried calling him, my hands sweaty as the phone rang. He picked up, his voice gruff. "Michael, I'm busy. What is it?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why didn't you tell us about the house? Why didn't you give us a chance to say goodbye?" Silence. Then he sighed. "You're still on about that? It's done, move on." I pushed harder, asking about Karen, the boutique, why he'd trust her over us. "You're ungrateful," he snapped. "I raised you. I don't owe you explanations." He hung up, and I sat there, staring at the phone, my heart pounding. It was the same dismissal as before, but this time, it felt final. I told Emily about the call, and she just held me, letting me rant until I ran out of steam. "You tried," she said. "That's what matters." But it didn't feel like enough. Rachel texted later, saying her visit with Dad was a bust. He'd brushed her off, too, saying she was stirring drama. I looked at the garden outside, at Mom's recipe cards on the counter, at the kids' drawings of flowers taped to the fridge. They were my anchor now, not Dad. But I wasn't ready to let go of the fight. Not yet. I needed to face him, one way or another, to say what I'd been holding in. Rachel's trip to Florida left her drained, and when she called me after, her voice was hollow. "He wouldn't listen. Michael," she said, "he's all in with Karen, acting like we're the ones betraying him." She tried to talk about Mom, about the house, but Dad just shut her down, saying he was starting over. It hurt to hear, but it also lit a fire in me. I couldn't keep avoiding him. If I didn't face Dad, I'd be stuck in this anger forever, and it was eating me alive. Emily saw it too. "You need to say your piece," she told me one night, her eyes steady. "Not for him, for you and the kids." So I booked a flight to Tampa, just me. I needed to do this alone. Work was finally under control. The Lexington office build wrapped up, and the client even thanked me, which felt like a small win. But my mind was on Florida. I told Sophie and Liam I was visiting Grandpa, keeping it vague so they wouldn't worry. Sophie, sharp as ever, asked, "Are you going to yell at him?" I laughed, despite myself. "Maybe," I said, ruffling her hair. Liam just hugged me, quiet, like he knew it was bigger than I was letting on. Emily packed me a sandwich for the flight, slipping in a note. You've got this. Come home to us. That note kept me grounded as I boarded the plane, my stomach in knots. Tampa was all sun and palm trees, the opposite of Kentucky's rolling hills. Dad's new condo was in a gated community, all stucco and manicured lawns. He opened the door, looking older than I remembered, his face lined but stubborn. Karen was there, hovering, offering me iced tea like this was a casual visit. I ignored her and got straight to it. Dad, why didn't you tell us about the house? Why'd you cut us out? He sighed. Same old dismissal. Michael, it's done. I needed a change. You've got your own life. I pushed back, harder than I ever had. That was Mom's house, our house. You sold it for her. I nodded at Karen, who looked away. You didn't even give us a chance to say goodbye. He got defensive, voice rising. I'm not dead yet. Michael, I deserve to be happy. Your mother's gone. It was the same line he'd used on Rachel, and it hit like a punch. I told him about the garden, Mom's letters, how much it meant to us. You took that from us, I said, my voice shaking. For what? A boutique that doesn't even exist. Karen tried to interrupt, saying it was a work in progress, but Dad cut her off. You're ungrateful, he said. Same as always. This time, I didn't back down. I'm not ungrateful. I'm hurt. You chose a stranger over your kids. He stared at me, then looked away. No apology, no regret. I left, feeling lighter but hollow. Back home, I threw myself into our garden. Sophie and Liam were obsessed, planting new flowers, tulips for next spring, like Mom loved. We made her peach cobbler again, the kitchen warm with cinnamon and laughter. I kept Mom's letters and photos in a box, sharing them with the kids, telling stories about her singing, her bad jokes. It wasn't the house, but it was enough. Rachel stopped trying to reach Dad, and I did too. He'd made his choice, posting beach selfies with Karen while we built something new. I heard through a friend that the boutique was struggling, but I didn't care anymore. I couldn't control Dad's decisions, just like I couldn't keep the house. One evening, as we watered the garden, Sophie asked if Mom would like our flowers. She'd love them, I said, my throat tight. Liam grinned, proud of his daisies. Emily squeezed my hand, and I realized this. Our family, our memories was what mattered. The house was gone, but Mom wasn't. She was in the roses, the recipes, the stories we told. I'd faced Dad, said what I needed to, and now I was letting go, not of Mom, but of the anger. You can't control family's choices, but you can hold on to what's yours and build something new from the ashes.